ドクターガオーなんちゃって。
And a warm welcome from me as well. It's good to be back. It's good to see everybody in this next Arknights progression video. But I'm not going to beat around the bush. We're going to get straight into Chapter 11. And man, before this even gets going too much, I just want to say this whole journey in Arknights has been absolutely amazing. And I can't thank everyone enough for the support on these videos. And you know, talking to people in the comments, talking to people in the Discord, it's been absolutely amazing. And I'm not saying this as a way to say, I'm done. I'm not, obviously. I am caught up in the story. We are done with Chapter 11. And now I feel like I'm joining the rest of the community in playing the waiting game. So, yeah, I get they are a bit behind on the release of the text altar event, and so there's going to be a lot of things coming in the next little bit, which is exciting for sure. I know it's a bit of a downside with the fact that we are having to wait so long, but that could also mean that we're going to get a lot dropped on us all at the same time with IS3, with the text altar event, with CC11, and maybe, you know, maybe I've been huffing too much copium lately, who knows, but either way, I'm excited for what's coming in the next couple of weeks. I'm excited to see what happens in the future with this. So, with being done with Chapter 11, I am now going to have to start doing some of the H stages, which I've been neglecting for quite some time, all the way back from Chapter 5. So I've got a lot I've actually got to do. And so I have got a decent amount to clear with this, and with that also comes other content. I'm not going to be just doing the progression stuff anymore. I'm going to be doing other types of content, probably looking towards the future some more, and figuring out some type of things for that, maybe some reactions to new content that's being mentioned, maybe giving people a brief idea of what's coming in the future, and having a discussion. We're also, somebody gave me the idea in the Discord to talk about clears with a group, so kind of getting a bunch of people together and discussing a stage, how they would clear it, in ways of helping people figure out different strats, because, you know, lineups are always going to be different. Everyone's going to have a different style when they go into clearing a stage. So I think in this way, it opens up an avenue for people with all different types of rosters to be able to figure out a game plan when it comes to things, and maybe you just brute force it like a lot of us do. Me in particular, I tend to brute force stages quite often, or maybe you're one that's a little more strategic and tries to go in and do it with minimal clears or with certain restrictions, and in that case, you know, this could be a good option. So hopefully we can get some people together to do that if people are willing. And of course, as always, the Discord server link will be in the description of this video, so if you do want to join and you do want to try to participate in something like that, you know, feel free. But with all of this out of the way, we're going to go ahead and start talking about Chapter 11, what this video is all about. So, this chapter in itself, I think, was honestly probably a lot easier than Chapter 10 overall. I thought Chapter 10 was a bit of a nightmare in some situations, while this one is more so making sure that you use the right strategy for getting rid of some more pesky units. The carts, as you can see here, can be dealt with in most cases in the stages pretty decently well, though sometimes they are a bit of a nuisance and can be a little bit harder to deal with and maintain, but it's mainly the ones that launch the missiles that you really have to worry about. The rest of them not so bad overall, but the early stages will give you just a bit of a tease as to what you're going to run into a little bit later as it starts to get a lot harder overall. But, you know, honestly, really not too bad. The main thing is I'm noticing that I'm definitely missing a lot of arch damage, so I do try to do some things in this video that you'll see to kind of alleviate that stress a little bit. There is still a lot of improvements that I have to do, especially with E2ing a lot of my early casters. Someone like Click, who is a fantastic option for damage. I really need to work up all the way to E2 and get Click just a bit stronger, because that is going to help tremendously. Because I think this in particular, unless you have somebody that ignores a lot of resistance or ignores physical, something like that, if you can lower their defense, this one is really kind of reliant on having a decent roster for casters, because they just do so much damage to these. The bots have so much resistance. It seems like most of the stuff you ran into had a lot of physical resistance and could really just tank basically most of the stuff that you threw at them. Not everything, obviously, but there are a lot of things that were a little rough. So, as you can see there, Gavial got absolutely destroyed by these little twigs, or whatever you would like to call them, that are floating around. They do launch at people in range to do quite a bit of damage, but if you have a tanky unit, someone with high defense like Korra, for instance, then they don't do all that much to them. You just want to make sure that you maintain the heals. Other than that, you'll be fine. Now, the red ones, the elite versions, obviously hit a lot harder. As you can see there, they took out Korra quite fast. But the regular versions are really not that bad, as Fire even takes half her health in one shot from the red ones. So I didn't do the best job of maintaining this. Obviously, I got a little better as we went on through the stages, but it is something that you have to get used to, and it will make it a lot easier if you put some tankier stuff out there. But we get this one done. It's another down. And speaking of upping my caster roster, we are going straight into my biggest upgrade for quite some time, and that is E2ing Mostima. Now, this has been a very, very long time coming, especially if you have watched my series from the start. Mostima was my second ever 6-star. The first 6-star that I pulled that was not on the newbie banner. It was actually when I started, I was pulling on the Ebonholes banner, and when I hit pity, I ended up getting Mostima, which I'm not mad about. I love Mostima. She is a great unit. She just needs so much put into her for her to be really good, because you really need that module. You need the module to be able to get that global slow and just make her that much stronger. So at this point, I have 69 trust out of 100. For the module, and so I'm going to have to replace who I've got in the control center and put Mostima there to get her ready for this. But with the third skill unlocked, I'm going to start using that, because the second one is good in situations. It's just a very, very short burst, and S3 is going to help me a lot more in terms of knockback and slow, so even without the module, it's going to be a nice little upgrade. But we take her to 40 for the moment, and then a little bit later I'm going to take her to 60 to get her ready for that. So all we'll have to do is the trust farming, and then after that we will have Mostima's module, because I do have a decent amount of stuff saved up. Honestly, with how much it takes to take them from level 1 to 60 when they're E2, it is quite a bit. So luckily I had about almost 600k LMD ready for this moment. But that also means that when Texas Altar comes out, and if I do pull her, and I'm gonna go ahead and tell myself that I am, because I don't want to have to deal with not having it. You know, it's all about what you envision, and so if I envision myself getting her, then, well, more than likely it'll come true. So that's what I'm hoping. That's the copium I'm writing on right now. But this stage in particular was one of my favorites of this chapter, and the main reason being is it's just a horde of enemies constantly running at you. You're taking a lot of the physical damage, and as you can see, Korra just tanks all of that with no problem. If they were elites, she would have got absolutely obliterated for sure, because I also don't think I got her module yet, which increases, but she does have to be blocking to get that extra 20% defense straight off the module. But I could throw some people in there to bait for the meantime, because she did go down. As you can see, it is just a constant flux of people coming through. Mudrock is spinning like crazy. Gavialtar is just swinging away just to take out anything that gets past Mudrock. And we cleared Swire, of course, at the back to do a lot of damage. And we sustained the flood. So, moving on to 7. Now, I am doing these, of course, in adverse mode, because I think it is a great option and something I hope they continue to do as the chapters progress, because I do like, of course, the old mode where I could go in and just play the challenge modes after the stage, but being able to complete both of them at the same time is actually such a fantastic option for dealing with any of this going forward. So I am happy that I have that option to be able to do that, but we get rid of one of the twigs early on this one, and there are 2 more that I'm going to have to deal with. And the thing about it is, I wait a bit too long, I think, in my opinion, to actually take these out. So once they do go down, they are going to be quite beefy. The main goal is to make sure that you take out the twigs as soon as possible, because if you do wait too long, you're going to run into the same problem I have unless you have a really strong caster team, which is they're going to be damage sponges that hit extremely hard. So either you have somebody that's extremely tanky like Kawara, ready to go with the skill just to survive for long enough to people to actually do some damage, or you're going to have to throw in a lot of baiters, as you can see me doing time and time again here. But I don't have skills ready on my Mostima. I also don't have click down because click is not quite available yet. I should have got rid of her early so that she could come back in. But as you can see, Kawara with the skill active takes very little damage and heals it off pretty quick. I now have click helping out, and I'm going to have Mostima with the ability active that is going to help clear that out. And so Kawara does eventually drop, but as you can see, it was quite enough time of stalling to be able to get it done. Now, one thing you are also going to see is that as I'm going through here, I'm going to borrow 2 or 3 probably different times within this, because like I said before, casters was an option that I didn't really have. So of course, what better way of doing it than using a support? And most of the time I ended up choosing Aya. I think for one of the stages I chose Golden Glow. Passenger is also a fantastic option for a lot of these because he does so much damage. But the main thing is I know I can throw Aya down and she's going to nuke the twigs, at least get some of them out of the way. Even if she doesn't finish them off after knocking them out of the tree, she's going to be able to do a decent amount of damage to try to get rid of them. And as you can see, since we're only 10 in and he hasn't gained that much health and damage yet, he is extremely easy to take out. So no problems there. But as you can see, Mudrock at the top is getting absolutely obliterated. This is not a great chapter for Mudrock. Anytime she has to deal with the necrosis modifier, she is going to struggle, because then she's not going to be able to spin because she's not gaining SP, which basically takes away the whole point of her survival. Now you can use her on something other than the skill 2 probably for this. Maybe skill 3 would be a pretty good option. You'll get the sleep so you can stall a little bit and then finish off from there. But as you can see, I did save one of the twigs for last because of my deployment options, and he is an extremely tanky guy. I've got Aya and Mostima both hitting him with blue poison. That's a lot of arch damage, and he still took that long to kill. So like I said, if you don't have great caster options, you're gonna need to burn them as quick as possible. Otherwise, you're going to very much struggle taking them out. And you know, watching back, I actually forgot that I had borrowed Gnosis, and I borrowed him for this map specifically because I didn't have... you can't use casters or snipers for this one in particular, so I chose to go with Gnosis because I figured he'd be a good idea for trying to take out these twigs. Wasn't exactly the best idea, as I'm seeing here. Maybe I shouldn't have ran him with skill 3. Maybe I should have got somebody to let me borrow with skill 1 or something for the faster or the quicker damage there, because you can't necessarily freeze certain ones when it comes to it. So he doesn't do near as much as he should, and with how fast these enemies are coming out, it becomes a bit of a problem trying to destroy these. Not to mention that some of these mages actually heal the twig as well, which is a very annoying situation to deal with. But as you can see, I threw Cutter bottom lane to do some damage, and it's getting healed right back up. Very time consuming. And of course, Gnosis has not taken out a single twig by this point, but with the fact that they are both popped now, and he's going to have his skill active while Kawara is tanking, I'm going to be able to do a little bit to these guys, and hopefully it would have been enough. I did get scared because the first line went down. I had some people to throw in just in case I needed. Gabby Alter's ability is down, and then also it's just Bagpipe basically sitting in the way of everything else. So I just had to throw a bunch of sacrificial units down, and eventually we cleared it out. So anything that you can use that is perhaps a guard with arts damage, like Moose for instance, would be a great option for that. Mine didn't get much use here. I think I used her a little bit later in some of the stages, and perhaps the boss stage, but I did leave this particular clip in because it's not often that I show myself making a fool of myself. Of course, I put Gabby Alter one step too far back, and they just walk straight through the blue gate right in front of me. That does happen from time to time. Like I said, I am not the smartest at times. I turn my brain off and then just kind of coast. But on the second attempt, we do get it done. I change up the strat by putting Swire at the first blue gate because she is cheaper than Gavialter, and then I can throw blue poison down and my healer to get all of them out at the same time that I was going to do Gavialter, which means I can save her for the backside facing up, deal with the top side, and then also throw Click in the middle to help with the buggies, because the buggies do a decent amount of damage, which is why I am also using Gravel for bait, but Click takes quick care of them, makes it a lot easier on me. And of course you see those little shards flying through doing physical damage to people. A bit annoying to say the least, and also of course the introduction of the heavy artillery. These things were a nightmare. I absolutely hated them. They do so much damage, and the way they work is they focus on someone with the highest HP in the area. So if you do have a tank or someone like Gravel with the second skill active, you can throw them down and they will be targeted instead, because if you do not do that, then of course your squishies are going to get absolutely obliterated. And one thing that I didn't like about my placement here was they put Mostima facing up, and also didn't drop bait for her, so she got taken out and Perfumer got taken out. So I had to quickly make sure that I had options to stall for the time being so that I could get Click down, and with Talopsis' second skill, it was enough to be able to tank the damage, and then I just have to stall the cart out while Click does the rest of the work, and that one is gone. Now, some of the later stages where you will see them, they get a little bit more rough to deal with. Hopefully, you know, you didn't have too hard of a time. For those that have cleared it, what was your best option for taking out the carts? I am curious what people used, because I know some people probably used Milinar, who maybe doesn't do the most damage to them because of just how tanky they are overall, but he still can be a good option for the whole area clear. Silver Ash, maybe. Surtur for some people probably was an option, but I am curious what people's best option for that was. But I had a little bit of an idea of what I was going to try to do. Now, Archetto was in the store, and now I don't know if it said Archetto. I'm going to call her Archetto because I like the way that sounds a little bit more. But with her in the distinction shop, I was at 179 distinctions, and so I thought, you know, I could do some pulls on this banner just to, maybe in case, grab her so I don't have to do her from the distinction shop, or in the worst case scenario, I get a new 5-star, which will then give me the distinction I need to actually buy her from the distinction shop. So I figured, might as well use some pulls. I didn't necessarily want to, because of course with Tank Salter being so close, I really wanted to save as much as I can, but I can't also say that in good faith, knowing that I spent so much of my OP on skins lately, because there's so many good skins that came out, and of course luck was not quite on my side on this one, but I did get a new 5-star in Chaev, so that is pretty nice to say the least. And of course we go in and buy Archetto, and I have to say she's been a lot of fun, a very, very nice option when it comes to low defense enemies in particular. Like high defense, it doesn't seem like she does anything, but that's mainly the way she's set up. She will absolutely destroy low defense enemies or mid defense enemies pretty quickly with her S3, so she is fun to use. And honestly, I think all of her kit is viable for different options. The first one, of course, being a quick option for an extra burst of damage that hits multiple units each time. So a very quick option for dealing with a large group very quickly. The S2 being very fun to watch with the ricochet, but also can be a lot of damage just when they're grouped up. And then S3, of course, being an absolute mayhem of a burst. Very fun to watch. But as you can see, I did get her, and I didn't plan for the fact that I didn't have any sniper chips, and nor did I have any caster chips, but I have a lot of everything else. And of course, I have enough of the dual chips to actually E2 her, just not enough to even E1. That is the problem I run into quite often, because when I'm not thinking about it, I'm not generally farming a specific piece of content, but I have been planning a little bit ahead this time and making sure that I have the chips that I need for Text Alter. Now the only thing I'm going to be waiting on is LMD, so hopefully I get enough from this next event that it'll be able to tank her up as soon as possible, because she is a nutty hero and is going to be a nice addition to my roster. But the way I dealt with this stage, as you can see, I put blue poison down early to get rid of the twigs on the left side. Now there are easier ways to deal with this, especially if you have someone like Silver Ash or Milinar. You're going to be able to take them out really easy in one use. I think Silver Ash should be able to do it in one use before they walk by. I could be wrong, but Milinar for sure does. So I ended up using blue poison early on. They have no health whatsoever, so she takes them out very quickly, and I should have gotten rid of her here. I don't know why I have her waiting so long, but as you can see, that mid lane is getting absolutely overrun. So all I did was, once Mudrock went down, I threw Bagpipe down, threw down Click and Mostima, so they could help take them out just in time, so they didn't move forward too quickly. Luckily, they take a little bit of time before doing that, otherwise I would have lost there. But with Gabby Alter, her S2, every time it's available, if you just basically start using it almost on the initial timing, then she's going to be readily available for the next usage, so she's always ready for the next moment that she's going to be needed. And with the damage from Mostima's S3 and Mudrock helping stall, we got rid of all the carts on that side. So all in all, most of the stages, the only problems I really ran into were the carts. So if you have good ways of dealing with them, of course this stage, this whole chapter becomes that much easier. But a little bit of a break from talking about this one, because this one is very straightforward. I'm just going to let this one play out. Most of these runs look kind of scuffed, but if it works, is it really that scuffed? You know, I can't say that any of these runs are going to be pretty, but they are pretty effective. So I will take that all day long. But one thing I wanted to talk about was the delays that we've been seeing here. I'm curious what people think when it comes to how far we should be behind the CN server, because I know people are a little bit impatient because we are having a long dead time period, which I'm not a big fan of, but I understand completely, and I'm not going to get too upset over it, just because, you know, I have a love for the game, and there's a lot of other things that I do at the same time. There's a lot of other gotchas that I have to maintain, so having dead weeks isn't necessarily a bad thing for my mental game. You know, I do so much of this that half the time I just get so tired. And, you know, I took a little mini vacation this last week, which is why it's been a bit of a short time with the uploads, and I do apologize. We're going to get back into it, doing the regular schedules and getting everything going. I just needed a bit of a break because it was becoming a bit too much at times. And when you get exhausted when it comes to playing a gacha game, it really takes a lot of the fun out. AK is the one that I enjoy doing regardless if I'm tired or not. This is just one of those games that I enjoy so much. But some of the others, maintaining them along with it, it drains you completely. But I am curious what people think. Would you prefer if we had shorter times in between the delays? Would you like it to stay 6 months? Would you like it to be longer? Perhaps you'd like it to be shorter. I, in particular, would prefer, honestly, if we could get 1 to 2 months as a delay time would be fantastic. And I know they have a lot of work to do in between the regular drop. I consider us basically the full releases, while CN is the beta testers for all the content that we get. But I know some people aren't too keen on waiting too long in this, so I'm just curious what people think and what they're hyped for most. You know, maybe this next event isn't the one that you're looking forward to the most. I personally am looking forward to some stuff that is a few months down the road that I'm not going to talk about currently in this video because it is a bit of spoiler content. But One thing I will note on this stage, because I hadn't mentioned it into this point, was the guys that are coming off the right lane there. You see the big dudes that are stalling at the front of that red gate. These guys will eat your operators, and the only way you can get them back is from defeating them. But when they eat your operators, they also move slower, but hit so much harder and have so much more health. So if you can take them out before they get to your operators, fantastic, that's the best option. If you can't, well, you're in for some hard times. Let me tell you, they are not the easiest to deal with. So you'll just throw what you have down, and of course I threw Mudrock down there. Some people might be disgusted at the fact that I would do that, but Mudrock is not necessarily going to help me too much here. She's not going to stall a lot compared to these guys because they hit so hard, and the shield timings and the spins are not going to be enough to keep her alive. So basically I threw people that I knew would be able to stall for me long enough with swap outs that it wouldn't be too much of a problem. And sorry about that, my dog was barking, so I had to go check the door, and it was a visitor and not a kidnapper. Kind of sad, to say the least. It would have been a nice little storyline, but either way, we're upping Matterhorn because my idea was that having a very high HP defender would be a good option for a lot of these clears. So Matterhorn being as cheap as he is to level up, I figured this would be a good option for a little extra hold, because while Beagle does do a good job as a 3-star of holding, if it is arts damage based, I'm going to be a lot better off going with someone like Matterhorn. Obviously, if I had someone with high resistance, which I do, they're just a little more expensive to take up, and then I would take that option instead. But saving LMD is the most important thing for me right now. I say after spending so much on Mostima, which is kind of ironic in that case, but moving on, this stage is an absolute nightmare, and the way I ended up dealing with this one, instead of doing it the easy way by using someone like Silver Ash, as I demonstrated for somebody in the Discord, or Milinar, you know, being able to take all those twigs out immediately with either one of them is a fantastic option and is probably the easiest way of doing this one. What I decided to do instead was do it the hard way, take out the first 2 or 3 and then deal with the last ones at the end when they're incredibly tanky. So why not, you know, if I can make it harder on myself, then absolutely, why not go for it? That's always seems to be my motto. But I used Aya to clear some of the ones that are coming out the left side, and after the first 2 or 3 come out, no more will spawn. So they'll start spawning from the middle gate and going top lane, which then all I have to do is make sure I have casters up there to take care of them as they come through. Thorns is going to hold that left door at the top for the moment, and then on the bottom lane I'm just going to throw some people in as sacrifices so that Gavialter and crew can help take out the 2 that are eaten. Now, they do get a little bit harder to hold on to, and the main problem that I have to deal with is if I use Aya's ability here to take out the rest of these things, I am not going to be able to have it for when the twigs come out. So now I have to do a little bit of stalling. We do a little bit of stalling here on this channel, and Thorns will go down, and then Bagpipe will go down, and then I'll have to throw someone else there. And then once they go down, I will throw Thorns down. So we wait a full 60 seconds for Thorns to come back just to do this clear so that I can get it done. And with that, also everybody has their abilities up and they're ready to go. So once Thorns down and we actually clear this, the real fun begins. The 3 twigs bust open and I'm gonna have to deal with a ton of damage. I highly recommend that you don't do this. Obviously, do not try this in your own runs. This is not fun. This is not a great option. This is just how I did it because I thought it would be fun to go ahead and do it this way instead of taking an easier way out. But with Aya's ability active and Gavialter S2, along with Mostima's S3 non-module, to bear that in mind because that will help, we are able to get it done just barely. The line almost falls, but we do get the job done. Now this one, to be honest, I thought this one was going to be a little harder than it would have been initially, but with the roadblock system, it always is nice to come up with different ways of clearing stuff like this. I do enjoy roadblock content. It's always quite fun to me, in all honesty. It's actually a really nice way of doing some of these clears and finding out weird ways of stalling and moving forward, but this one was way easier than I anticipated, so I didn't have to try to do some weird stalling strat to keep wrapping them around for skill timings. Honestly, all I really did was feed the hungry guys at the bottom and then just kind of funnel them all into one specific lane, because since they are taking the shortest option when it comes to walking through the gate, they're going to be walking in certain directions, so I'm going to start to block things off, especially when it comes to Bagpipe, because if I didn't there, she would fall and then Gavialter would not be the option that I have ready for this. Now I threw a mud rock in front of the guy at the very end so that he could take as much damage as possible before he actually consumes them, so that maybe makes it a little bit easier to clear. I'm not sure if it really makes a difference. As you can see, I dropped one here early to slow him down so I can get the rest of them out of the way and make sure that Gavialter's ability is up before he gets there, because she is the main key to success in a lot of my runs. She does so much damage and she has so much good utility when it comes to these that it just helps tremendously. Now Mudrock, of course, is tanking quite well against a single one, even though she is taking a decent amount of damage. But she holds well enough, and we get that one done. That one, honestly, I have to say, was quite surprising in the fact that you go from 11-15, which is a pretty hard stage if you don't have the right options, into 11-16, which is kind of a pushover stage. Looks like it'd be scarier because you were dealing with the elite versions of the hungry guys, but it just ends up being way simpler and way easier than you anticipate, which obviously I'm not going to complain about. I will take the easy stages and get the rewards for very little work. I'm always for that. But Dagda is a hero that comes out with some of the clears on this as you're doing the adverse, getting enough stars for these, and honestly has a really cool talent that I think would be really fun to actually try out at some point. I don't exactly know who qualifies as Glasgow Gang. I'm going to have to look into that one before I make any decisions on that, but this is an op that I feel could be actually really fun. I don't have a lot of fighter options as well, so, you know, could be something that I use in the future. I say that a lot, and then I always delay them, but with as much of the things that I have built and not having to look forward too much to what I'm building in the future with this, there could be some that I make as surprise upgrades, so we'll see what ends up happening. But as for the next stage, this one is going a little more minimalistic. This one is more about sustaining in the lane while dealing with the cards that launch AoE at your teammates on the ground. So if you have a viable squad for taking out most of these lanes without having to drop anything to block, you're gonna have a lot better option here as well. But honestly, I do like that they incorporate stuff like this into the actual runs, because a lot of times most of the stages come down to the same thing. If you have strong blockers, then you're good to go in most stages, but sometimes it's better to have a strat, or mix it around at least, where they require us to have a bit more than just strong blockers. Having good options overall helps me to want to expand my roster a bit more. I wish they'd include more of things like this, because it gives more options and more insight for players going in to actually try something new. And as you can see there, I got actually kind of lucky that the cart didn't actually take out Mostima there, because if she had went down, more than likely I probably would have lost there, just based on the timing of everything. So with her staying alive through all of it, it kept me from having to actually swap out and try to stall for a little bit longer for another art stealer or just a really long clear. But another break from the actual content clearing, we are putting an E1 into Archetto. It's been 2 days since I had shown you the one where I couldn't quite upgrade her because of the chips. I had to wait a full 2 days for the map to actually open, which was a nightmare. So now all I've got to do is get the last little bit for my dual chips, which I do have enough for, and then also put in my Ori rocks. So with that done, we now have an E2 Archetto. And honestly, man, I love her art. She has fantastic art, and of course at first I decided, you know what, I'm not gonna buy the skin. I've spent enough on skins lately. I need to save this OP. Well, I caved. Okay, I caved again, and you'll see a little bit later on in the video. I'm not gonna display it, but I will show you that I actually did purchase it, and I can't say that I'm mad about it. It's actually pretty good. I'm a big fan of what they do when they change the art and all the animation changes and extra sprites they add on to it. They always do a fantastic job. So you know I can't hate on this company whatsoever. I love this company. I love what they do. And also picking up a new 5-star from Recruits as well, getting Vulcan for the first time. And I have to say, I don't know how many times I've actually missed Vulcan's guarantee through the Recruit. I didn't realize there was a couple of options that I've seen a few times, I think, that I didn't realize were a guarantee for Vulcan. So if I can say anything at all when it comes to the recruits, please use a recruitment calculator. Unless you actually know what most of the tags are going towards, use it, because there could be one that you just would not expect whatsoever that does have a really, really nice guarantee. But we're moving on to the final stage of this video and the final stage of this chapter currently until I do the H modes, and that is the boss stage. Now, as you can see, I borrowed Golden Glow because, like I said before, my caster options weren't great, and while I probably could have gotten a strat together with a little bit of time, I could have done it with my own roster, but I just didn't have great reach for the second phase. So as you can see, I used Mostima and Golden Glow to take out the last two cards here, and then I'm going to use Mostima's ability to do a little extra damage to the bottom lane and just take out a couple of them. As you can see, just not having that reach is the biggest problem with taking these out. I can take these small ones, but I can't take the elite versions, where most of the pain comes from. But as you can see, Golden Glow does target them first in this situation, so they will be taken care of in the next little bit. And when they do start moving, if they do get through these stairs and I have Golden Glow active, then just activating her at that point will give me the final finish off of them. But one other thing is, while it is active, while the boss is flying in the air after losing a certain amount of HP to do the nuking on the squad, she is going to target them because there's nothing else actually on the field. So I've got one more coming. I could potentially block with someone like Gavialter, but there's no need because I knew the boss was about to jump at this point, so I could just wait for him to do that. With Golden Glow active, I get that done, and now it is just me and the boss, and the boss does hit extremely hard. I will say that is one thing, one upside to the boss, but for the most part, it's kind of lackluster. I don't know if everybody else feels the same way, but I feel like this one could have been a lot harder than it actually was. And I'm not disappointed. It was a cool fight. It was a cool mechanic in general, but stalling him wasn't that bad. I think back on the fact that I had done Blood Knight in the previous video, and he was an absolute nightmare. But the Chapter 11 boss being like this was a bit of a letdown in a way, but once again, I'm not going to complain about it too much. I think they do a good job of balancing things out, and as the chapters progress more, it's going to get a lot harder, so I'm looking forward to that for sure. And of course, the event bosses and CC coming up. That one's going to be really fun to do, especially with everybody trying out Texalter and seeing what Texalter is capable of. More than likely, we're going to see some crazy clears, so I'm looking forward to seeing some people doing like 1-op clears or 2-op clears in the future here. I'm not big brain enough for that, but I will enjoy with everyone else watching other people do it. And honestly, who knows, maybe in the future, during CC, I could try to do some Swire runs. I could try to do something, maybe she has a chance to actually do a large portion of the damage or something in one of those, and I can try to figure out a strat with her. I don't know what CC11 looks like. I try not to spoil myself because I like to have the idea of going in as a fresh run and figuring things out myself that way. So it'll be fun to see what I can do, and maybe if I get the chance to get Whislash and some of the others instructors up there, I could do a mainly instructor clear, which may be a little rough, but with low risk, it's probably pretty manageable, so we'll see what I can accomplish there. But looking into it, Archetto is 44 and not quite going to be at her module for a while. I need a lot of LMD, and I've got a lot of saving to do, so probably going to wait on her module for a little bit. I don't exactly know how good it's going to be for her. Obviously, they're always going to be helpful, and I am looking forward to also Dorothy's module in the future, because Dorothy is an insanely good op. If you don't use her, or you have her and you haven't leveled her up because you're not sure, 100% I implore you to try her out, because she is insane. Go for a run in IS2, try that one out, because it's not even necessarily about having specific artifacts to make her stronger. She can be that good. But that's going to do it for me, guys. I hope to see you in the next one. Peace.